throughout the rest of the year, you had, FTX that was basically trying to act as this kind of white knight in the space and coming to save the day after, Three Arrows had gone under, and they're like, hey, look, we're the good guys. We're here to clean everything up. And in retrospect, that was just a bunch of posturing from SBF and his team. They had purchased the Voyager assets for, I think it was $1.1 billion at the time. They also extended a credit line to BlockFi, which had basically saved BlockFi at the time. And so, for several months, people had kind of thought that FTX was kind of the white knight of the space. And they were kind of the responsible ones, which is pretty funny. In retrospect, like at the time, the tactics that SBF was using to puff his chest out and kind of posture that they were kind of the adults in the room, it did fool everybody. But then, November comes, and what happens in November? Well, you had this initial kind of leak from CoinDesk, which was showing the balance sheet of Alameda, which is the kind of sister fund, which we know is basically the same entity as FTX now. Which, by the way, I think in crypto, a lot of the kind of crypto, Twitter people always knew that these two entities were commingled. Not that they were using customer funds, but they knew, okay, Alameda probably has some extra trading edge that no one else has. They're probably getting access to, customer liquidation data and things like that. But people just kind of accepted it, and they said, okay, it kind of is what it is. We just play by the game, right? But I don't think anyone knew the kind of extent to what was going on behind the scenes. I think that did, catch almost everyone off guard. I think there were a few people in with, the benefit of hindsight that, were super skeptical, but very few people were saying, this is a full-on, scam. And to, SBF's credit, I think a lot of the posturing that they did, the political donations, all these types of things, the effective altruism, it really did fool everybody. But once the balance sheet got leaked, everyone realized, holy cow, Alameda is not the entity that we thought they were, because their entire balance sheet was just illiquid altcoins. And most of the altcoins were coins that Sam had literally created. So it was Serum, Oxy, FTT, and also some locked Solana as well. I think like $900 million in locked Solana. The crazy thing, especially about Oxy, FTT, and Serum, is that these were essentially what we like to call these high FDV, low float tokens. And what that essentially means is that you have, the circulating supply, and then you have the total amount of supply that will ever be in existence. And there was a very small amount of supply that was actually circulating relative to the amount that would ever come into the market. And so you could have these crazy price moves that cause a massive run up in market cap because there's a very small amount of circulating supply that you can actually access if you want to get exposure to the asset. But meanwhile, Alameda was holding the majority of the assets, especially in the case of FTT. And even going back to kind of the origins of FTT, a lot of people, it's hard to say for sure, but it seems like there's a good likelihood that FTT was originally created just to fill a hole in Alameda's balance sheet. I don't know that for a fact, but there's a lot of speculation around that, and some people have some compelling evidence of that being the case. But once the balance sheet was leaked, it's unclear. I'm kind of in the camp of it was leaked for a reason. I don't know if it was from someone in kind of the Binance camp or one of those things. It's kind of tinfoil hat type of question, but nonetheless, it got leaked, and everyone kind of realized that they weren't in the position that everyone thought they were. And so what happened after that was CZ had his infamous tweet where he basically said, hey, look, this entity is weaker than we thought they were, and therefore, kind of our FTT tokens are at risk. And also, we just don't want to have exposure to this entity that seems to be, kind of not on the up and up. I'm kind of in the camp that I don't think CZ realized, how they were completely swimming naked. I think he probably realized there was, to some extent, some weird behavior going on behind the scenes. But I doubt he probably knew full on that, they were basically, giving Alameda the majority of their customer deposits. But after he tweeted out that they were going to sell their FTT stake, which they got, whenever they cashed out of their FTX equity, it caused two things. It caused, first of all, a panic on the FTT token itself. Everyone said, oh my gosh, like the only buyer of this thing is Alameda and FTX. And Binance is about to dump, multi 9-figure bag on this, already a liquid market. And then the other thing it caused was a bank run on FTX itself, because people began to wonder, hold on, does CZ know something? Why is CZ getting rid of his FTT tokens? There must be something that maybe he knows that we don't. And so you saw a massive amount of withdrawals, billions of dollars of withdrawals within the first few days, which got processed originally in the first 24 to 36 hours. But then, of course, after that time period, they no longer could process the withdrawals because they didn't have the capital. Because with the benefit of hindsight, we now know that they lent $8 to $9 billion of customer deposits to Alameda, which was collateralized with FTT tokens. And when we go back and look on chain, and this is something that we put in the report, when we look at the balance of FTT on exchanges, we see this massive jump in September. And at the time, SBF tweeted out, he said, "Oh, this is just a natural, shift of wallets. We're just moving around some wallets," which we now know was definitely not the case. And
what were they doing?
You could see that they were lending out the customer assets to Alameda, and Alameda had moved the FTT tokens to FTX basically as collateral for taking on those customer deposits. Because there's no way that if Alameda actually, if they had a liquidity issue at the time, that they were going to be able to get that liquidity out of selling off their FTT tokens because they were the only buyer of them. And so, when you look at the end of September and you look at the balance of FTT on exchanges, you can see this huge jump, which we now know to be as the day that they ended up transferring over the customer assets for the FTT tokens as collateral.